tell us a little bit about the backstory between the mayor and the relationship between the police and the mayor's office and how things are going in Chicago with regards to public safety.
Well, I mean, before she was elected mayor, she was a police reform, in quotation marks, advocate who promulgated the same line of argumentation that you got from the Obama White House, that police departments, including Chicago, were systemically racist, despite the fact that half of the Chicago Police Department are black or Latino officers. Doesn't matter, systemically racist. She has, like in so many other places where you see rioters taking control of the streets, she has put Chicago police back on their heels. And the result of that, as we know from research from Roland Fryer at Harvard, and as we know from what we see with our eyes in Portland and Seattle and Chicago and New York and Atlanta and L.A., is that you put police back on your heels and you tell that small segment of the population that are violent criminals, repeat violent criminals in most cases, that you have nothing to concern yourself with as it pertains to the police or the state's attorney's office. That's important too. Then you have them doing what you're doing what you see them doing, which is running amok. I mean, 15 people shot at a funeral, and it was laying to rest a gangbanger. So one gang is there, the other gang drives by and shoots. The gang that was there to honor their fallen brother opens fire, and it's a shootout like you see in a Robert De Niro movie.
Dan, this all feels like a movie. Is there any doubt in your mind that if President Hillary Clinton or President Barack Obama stated that we would offer federal assistance to cities that are being overrun by violence, would there be any pushback from the Lori Lightfoots of the world?
Of course not. The whole thing is asinine, and it's such an obvious misdirection play. Don't look at me. Don't look at what's happening on the streets. Don't look at what we've done. Don't look at our non-prosecution culture. Don't look at my antagonism toward the police department. Instead, the boogeyman of the federal law enforcement officers. That's the same thing Ted Wheeler's doing in Portland. You know, they're the problem. Like, federal law enforcement is the crime problem in Portland or Chicago. It's just laughable, but unfortunately, because there's such anti-Trump sentiment in big cities like Chicago and Portland, they get away with it. And here's the thing, too, Mike, as you know, in New York as well. I mean, federal law enforcement works with state and local law enforcement routinely. There's nothing unprecedented about DEA or ATF working with a major urban police department. This is all silly. It's a clear and clean misdirection play.
Well, what's the federal government supposed to do as rioters are trying to tear down and burn down federal courthouses?
Exactly.
If these mayors are not, and incidentally, you're right about New York. Here's de Blasio yesterday. I mean, you talk about having it both ways. As Trump says, listen, if these big cities run by Democrats can't get their act together and keep people safe, we will. And so here's de Blasio's response. I want to play this for you, Dan Proft. Listen to this. A, he's bluffing. He won't really do it. But B, if he does it, we'll sue him and we'll stop it. Listen to de Blasio.
This president blusters and bluffs and says he's going to do things, and they never materialize on a regular basis. So first, we should not overrate his statements. They are so often not true. Second, if he tried to do it, it would only create more problems. It would backfire. It wouldn't make us safer, and we would immediately take action in court to stop it. From my point of view, this would be yet another example of illegal and unconstitutional actions by the president. And we have often had to confront him in court, and we usually win.
Dan, if it weren't so dangerous and tragic, it really would be fall down on the floor, laugh out loud funny. This is just common. It is like satire.
Yeah, Kaiser Warren Wilhelm there in New York City. I mean, he's saying this while what shootings and murders are up 40% year over year in New York City.
Yes.
And he's celebrating that he's emptied the jails. Gee, I wonder if there's a correlation between the two.
Just like there's no correlation between riots and protests and mass demonstrations of thousands and thousands of people having anything to do with the spread of coronavirus. You don't get it when you go to a protest, Dan.
Well, just one thing on this, too. Like you have Cy Vance in New York, we've got Kim Foxx of Jussie Smollett fame in Chicago. And this stat is something people should understand because so much is focused on police and the mayors, the state's attorneys, the prosecutors, too. The average number of arrests for a person arrested for shooting or murdering somebody in Chicago is 12. 12 times. The police know who they are. The prosecutors know who they are. You have a revolving system of justice and these cultures of non-prosecution that is putting known violent offenders back on the streets to commit violent crimes again.
Dan Proft is with us. He's on the Salem Radio Network in the evenings and the mornings. This guy is one of the hardest working people I know. He's on AM 560, The Answer with Amy. Dan, I'm an optimistic guy by nature. I love my life. I'm lucky. I'm blessed. I love my family. I love my job. I love my country. I get people calling me now every day saying, I'm so down. I'm so beaten down. I'm worn down by this. What do we do? Give us some reason for inspiration and hope. Throw a little optimism into this conversation for us.
Well, look, I think what you see, I mean, just in the context of the violence we're talking about in the streets, you see a lot of people that aren't necessarily Trump voters looking at what's happening and saying, this cannot stand. This is not right. These governments have to protect their citizens. That's the first job. And what I see from them and the middling rhetoric I hear from them, this is not right. So I think there's still a very strong strain of common sense in America, even if they don't like Trump's personality, as he's conceded previously, that says, I may not like this guy, and I may not like everything that the Republicans want to do or the conservatives say or that the president says and does, but I cannot stand for the disintegration of civil society as we see happening in our major cities. And so, that common sense that's still innate, I think, in most Americans is present, and I think it will be accounted for on November 3rd.
You're optimistic about November 3rd?
I am.
Good. I am too. We have to be. We got to pray. We got to lift each other up. We got to get across the finish line. And yeah, there are going to be debates within the party. I saw all this nonsense about Liz Cheney and, Matt Gaetz and all that yesterday. Listen, there's room for dissent and dispute and differences of opinion. But ultimately, if we don't win November 3rd on the local, state, and federal level, I'm seriously afraid for my country. I know people say that all the time, but you think about, I was watching last night the whole conversation on Fox News on Tucker Carlson about the filibuster rule. Schumer says, hey, everything's on the table. We'll get rid of the filibuster. Right. 51 senators, Dan. Goodbye Second Amendment. Goodbye borders. Look at what the damage, the destruction they're going to do. Defund the police. That'll be a cakewalk compared to what their agenda is.
And their agenda is a bridge too far, I think, for most people. Again, just going to non-ideological, just common sense people. In my show yesterday, I talked to Michael Anton, the author of the Flight 93 election essay from 2016. And he basically said, look, we're on the same flight. It hasn't changed from 2016 to 2020. And what he said in 2016 was this is a last stand to determine whether or not there is still virtue left in America. And the electorate responded that there is and that they want there to be. And I think the electorate is going to respond similarly on November 3rd.
Dan, I appreciate your work so very much, and I'm grateful you could take some time out of your day to join us here on the Mike Gallagher Show. Congratulations on the national show and all the great work you and Amy are doing on AM 560, The Answer. Keep fighting the good fight.
I appreciate your support, and a pleasure to be with you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Dan Proft joining us out of Chicago to talk a little bit about the insanity that's right now going on in Chicago. And listen, he's a very common sense guy. He's, as you could tell, he's no nonsense. He's very thoughtful, very analytical, and he's optimistic about November the 3rd, as am I. How about you? 1-800-655-MIKE. We're in the ReliefFactor.com studios. It is Wednesday. I feel better. I feel a little bit better already. July 22nd, 2020. I keep taking my temperature again like a lunatic because I woke up a little bit under and a little bit kind of out of it, I thought, that's it. And I'm the only person in the history of humankind whose temperature is plummeting as a potential coronavirus symptom. I think I'm at 97.4. Oh, my gosh. We're going to make it. Hang in there. 1-800-655-MIKE. And thank you for the kind comments about the weight loss. I'm knocking on 50 pounds. I'm at about 48 right now. So I'm trying. I'm on that bike, pedaling away every night, counting my points, drinking my water, encouraging my friends. Peg and Joey are losing weight. Cubby's losing weight. Let's take care of each other. Let's be healthy. Let's be ready because we got it. As my buddy Larry Elder says, we've got a country to save.